Okay, so let's work with Chapter 1, Introduction to Computers, Programs, and Java. In this chapter, there are several things that are going to allow you to have fun. I won't take that away from you. Basically, the first couple of, let's say, 8 sections of the textbook, pretty much this is more theory. Some of you might have a good background in computers in terms of hardware, software, the parts of a computer, etc. Right, so I'm gonna let you guys read that, but then I will talk more about section 1.7 and on. Pretty much like the programming portion of it. Okay, how to write a simple Java program, and then pretty much displaying output in the computer. Then basically some basic concepts about your first code. Um, One thing that we will not go over in the textbook is about using the option pane, pretty much like dialog boxes and things like that. That's something that is not the scope of this class. So at the end of at the end of each chapter, if you see something about option panes, then you can pretty much disregard that. Okay. So I'm just gonna skip this presentation all the way uh, to the portion where we write a sample program. Okay. So technically, the first program will be a simple Java program. We're just gonna display welcome to Java in the computer. Okay. So what I will do, I will go to Eclipse here. Okay. And then we're just gonna create a new class. Okay. So I'm just gonna say I'm gonna pick my folder. So actually, let's just create a new project. So I'm just gonna go to File, New, Java Project, and then I'm gonna type here Chapter 1 Files. Okay, I'm gonna click on Next. Okay. Or sorry, actually I should click on Finish. You can just click on Finish, and then this will create a new project called Chapter 1 Files. And then under this file, we're gonna create our first program. So under each project, you're gonna have a source folder. So in this source folder, I can right click, click on New. I'm gonna click on Class, and then here you make sure that you have your source folder and close. Also, you wanna click here on your first check where it says public static void main. So I'm gonna click on that. Later we'll talk about that. And then I'm gonna put here my first program. Okay, and then click on Finish. And then you will see your first program. You can see that the class name is your first program, and class pretty much indicates that this is technically your main code. I will talk about that later. I would say down the road we're gonna talk more about classes, methods, etc. Okay, but here basically we're gonna have our first class, and then inside our class we have our main method. So the word main is pretty much where your program starts. Notice that all the curly brackets match. So here you're gonna have an open curly bracket and match with this curly bracket here, and then one curly bracket for the method which match with this one. Okay. Um, in terms of public, we are not going to go in details into this. So pretty much all our classes and methods are going to be public. This means it can be accessed by anyone. Static, more in chapter 8, we're going to talk about what static means. Okay, and void is technically because we are not returning any value. Chapter 5 will make more sense of it. But for our scope, for the scope of this chapter, pretty much we're gonna have a class, we're gonna have a method, and then our code is gonna be just technically in between. Okay, so let me go here to my presentation. Okay, so pretty much what is going to happen here is that once we write our code, which is here, this is our source code, we're going to compile it. Okay. If we have an error, pretty much we have to begin again. If we don't have an error, we're going to have a compile file which is going to look something like this, right? So pretty much this is not something that we understand, it's not plain English, but that will be our compile file. And then pretty much the virtual machine is going to run the bytecode version of your file, right? This is the plain English version of our code. And then we're going to get a result which is going to print. Okay, so we're going to learn our first command, which is system.out.println. Welcome to Java. Okay, so pretty much I'm just going to type this. Okay, so every time that I want to print something on the system, pretty much this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to type system.out. Okay, and then here you can see we have a bunch of methods. So far we're just going to deal with print line, which is this guy right here. Okay, so I'm going to say print line and then quotation marks, because I need whatever I'm printing needs to be between quotation mark. This is what I'm printing. Okay, I notice that here I have an X telling me that here I have an error. Every line in Java needs to end with a semicolon, right? So now when I put a semicolon, notice that I don't have any errors. Now when I run and compile my software here, okay, here in the output console, you can see that I have my output. I can add a second line. Okay, second line, and then what I'm missing, my semicolon. So I'm gonna put that, and then you see I have a second line. Notice that I have a first line and a second line because I'm using the print line command. Let me take out the ln from the first line. You see I don't have any error. Now I'm gonna run it. You see? So the first command didn't do a return. So it just printed this is what I'm printing, but it didn't return a line. And then that's why you can see second line here, all in the same line. If I add my ln again, yeah, now I'll go back to 2 lines. What about numbers? You can do numbers in Java as well. So I'm just gonna do .out .println. Okay, and then here I'm just gonna put the number 1 colon, and then when I print here, I got a number 1, which is fine. Notice that I didn't use my quotation mark. And you can say, well, okay, let me put quotation marks in here. So I'll do that. Fine, that works. I still get a number 1. But what is wrong with this? Okay, if I do 1 plus 1, which will give me 2, I don't get that. Why? Because this is treating this as a string, as a text. If I want to do the computation, then I will need to take out the quotation marks. And then I'll do it again. Now I get a result, 2. So as you can guess, you can do any kinds of calculations in here. So you can do multiplication. So I'm going to say 5 times 6. Okay, so 5 times 6. And then I'm going to run this again. 30. So that works. What about division? 5 divided by 6. So I'm gonna run it. Oh, I got a 0 in here. Why is that? Well, the reason is that Java is kind of picky about the type of numbers that you use. So you can see here that the 5 and the 6 is what we call integers, right? So if we know that 5 divided by 6 should be 0.833, a decimal. But since this is an integer, a whole number, and this is another integer, it's going to give me an integer solution. The way to actually fix that, I will have to change the 6 to 6.0, and then I run it. Now I get a decimal, or what we call a double type result. And then you might say, well, why 5 divided by 6.0? What about if I do 5.0 divided by 6? Works the same. What about if I do 5.0 divided by 6.0? Okay. Also works the same. Okay, so this is really important because if you are doing calculations, for example, something like 1 plus 2 divided by 3, then here, what do you think the answer is going to be? Well, according to this, it should be 1, right? Because 2 divided by 3, as we learned before, is going to be 0. So in order to get an accurate number, I will have to change one of these guys to be double, right? So this is really important in order to get the right number, okay? But you can see here that to get your first program to print something and then to get some numerical result is pretty simple, okay? Now, let's go back to a couple of the things that I want to go over. Okay, so like I said, we have the main method, right? Pretty much this your first line in the code, right? So here you have your class and your main method, and everything in between is what happened in your code. And here we have our statement. So the only command that we're going to work so far is in printing, but then in chapter 2 we're going to get inputs, and then we're going to do some math calculations, so on and so forth. And then you will need your semicolon at the end. Don't forget about that. Okay, so public, class, static void, these are what we call reserved words. So for example, you cannot use this as your file name, or you cannot, or for variables, etc. It's gonna give you an error. Okay, so pretty much Eclipse is gonna tell you no, you cannot use that word, but that's one of the reasons. Okay, and let's talk about some organization. So like I mentioned before, you're gonna have that your class and your main method is pretty much gonna be organized with curly brackets, like here, right? And then you can follow them, and you can see that this curly bracket is gonna match the last one, and this curly bracket is gonna match the next to last one. Okay, so and you can look and see the indentation, how it's important, right? That way you know that this statement belongs inside this method, and this method is inside this class. Okay, so we have special symbols. So far you guys have seen the curly brackets or the braces, like it says here. Pretty much it denotes the opening and closing of blocks, and also the quotation marks. Okay, so that's for enclosing string, and the semicolon for marking the end of a statement. We are not working with brackets. We will do that later in chapter 6 and 7. Okay, so here let's talk about now programming style, like comments, naming conventions, indentation and spacing lines, and block style, etc. Okay, so when we talk about comments, we have three types. Okay, so let me just go back to Eclipse. Okay, so we have three type of comments. Like this one here is what we call a line comment. You can see that we have the forward slash. So it's important to document typical sections of your code. Like for example, here I have like slash slash, and I will say this is the output section. Okay, and then I will have another line here, and then I will say uh, uh, this is the formula, right? You can see here that we have line comments, pretty much explaining different sections of your code. Now, if I have a longer type of comment that I can do, let's say at the beginning, I'm gonna do slash star and then press enter, and you can see here that we have a slash star, a star, and then star slash. So this is what we call a block comment. So this is a block comment. I'm just gonna type here. I'm gonna show you block comment, and then if I press enter again, helps for multiple line comments. Okay, that way you don't have to keep typing uh, slash slash all the time, right? You say every time you press enter, you just keep adding. The other type of comment will be slash star star, and then you press enter, and then here it will create a block comment. Notice that how we added this tag. We are not going to talk about this type of comment until chapter 5, when we are dealing with methods, because then we're going to provide a different type of documentation. But for chapter 1 through 4, we're going to deal with line comments like this one, or block comments, right? Those are the ones that I would like to see in your code. For naming conventions, when you are dealing with classes, pretty much you will have to follow this convention. You have to capitalize the first letter of each word. For example, here, compute expression is a valid name for a class. Right? So when you're naming your files, please follow this convention. Okay, if this were like small cap C, small cap E, that will be, it's not invalid, but it's not a convention that we're gonna follow. So these are things that are going to look for in your work. Later in chapter 2, we're gonna talk about variables and how's that gonna work. Proper indentation and spacing. Uh, you need a spacing between items, also blank line to separate segment of code. Okay, so I will show you. For example, here in your code, notice how I give spacing between the numbers here, right? So, for example, this is something that we are not looking for, something like this. It's very hard to read. So in your work, in your rubric, you're gonna see proper, easy to read. This is what I mean by that, right? So notice here that you just provide space. Also, here I have different segments of code. In this case, I have output. Here I have the formula. So you have to give spacing. So for example, this is hard to read. Don't have all your code just all together. It's easier for the user if there is some spacing in between. Okay, that way you can see that this is one section and this is another section. Okay. So this is in your textbook in section, well, depending on the version that you have, but in this case, I'm just gonna go here to program styles and documentation, programming style and documentation. The comments, the section that I explained is just here, the three different type of comments. This is what I mean by the spacing. You can see here we have a bad style, right, all together, good style, nice spacing. For the blocks, you have to be consistent of where your brackets are located, right? So if you're gonna have them all be like this, that's fine. Uh, and this is another style, okay? End of line style. This is also fine, but don't have them mix. For example, here you have end line style, and then here next line style, right? That's not good. Okay. Also, proper indentation is recommended, right? So, for example, like here, things like this, okay, looks unprofessional, very hard to read, and I don't know if this comment belongs to this method or to this class, okay. So, for example, if it's something like this, okay, so this could be confusing. So, one thing that you can do after you type everything, you can press Control A and then Control I on a PC, and notice how everything is indented really nice. Okay. Let's talk about different programming errors. So in terms of programming errors, we have three different types, like syntax errors, which are detected by the compiler. Runtime errors cause the program to abort, and you're gonna see this more in chapter 6. And logic errors, which you have incorrect result. For example, here, syntax error. Look at this piece of code. If you see we have something that is missing, here you will have a quotation mark that is missing, okay, at the end. So this will not compile, okay. So I'm gonna go back to my code and show you. So for example, if I take the quotation mark here at the end, you can see here I will have an X. So this will not compile. Many times you can double click and then Eclipse double click on the X, and Eclipse will tell you what is wrong and how to fix it. Insert missing quote. So if I click here, it will just do it for me. Actually, double click and then we'll include the missing quote, which actually did it in the wrong place. So I'm just gonna move this to the inside. Now it's good, right? So this is a case of a syntax error. The program will not compile. Runtime error, you look at this case, we're dividing by 0. So here, you know that is also we're going to get something that is not going to run. So let's try that. So this is a compiling error. I'm just going to say 1 divided by 0. Let's see what happens. Okay, and you can see here, I got an exception, which actually down the road we're going to learn how to deal with this so that way the program doesn't crash. And then logic error, for example, in this case, everything is going to compile, no errors, but the formula is wrong, right? And also this is the worst one, because the user will believe what the system says, and you know that we have to make sure that we provide the right information, right? So in this case, we have logic error. Okay, so here you have an idea in how to create a simple program. Also, I explained some things about integers and decimal values. Okay, and then also I explained about the different type of commenting styles, programming styles, right? So things will look nice, and also about the different type of errors. So work on your homework. A nice way of working on the homework is trying to come up with an idea and with a plan in how you're gonna do your homework, okay, and how you're gonna solve the problem. At the beginning, the problems are simple. You have to look for the problem on the programming exercises here, okay, in this section, and then you look for your problem, okay. You're gonna see that some of the code and some people are gonna maybe spin on this. Hopefully not. It will get easier with the information given in following chapters. I am not expecting you to go in other chapters and trying to find out how to make this easier. So that's the whole point. I want you to do this with what you know so far, and then you can say, "Man, if I were able to do this, it would be easier. Why this is so difficult?" And then things will make sense down the road. Like for example, like this problem, okay? It seems tedious, but with information in chapter 3, you will be able to do this faster, okay? And then we're gonna see how that will make sense for us, okay? Don't leave yet. I wanna add something. You can also make a complete mathematical statement. Let me give you an example. For example, you can say the area of this circle is the area of this circle is, and then you can say equal and put a space, and then with the plus sign, you can actually add your formula at the end, right? So here you will put the number pi. Later we're gonna learn how to do this in a more efficient manner, and then you can, let's say that the radius is 10, so you can do pi r squared, and then allow the system to do the calculation, right? So if I run this, it should give me the result. Right? Later we're gonna learn how to format this. So this is equivalent to saying something like this. I'm just gonna copy this line and then put it here, and then I'm gonna take the ln for the first one, right? So this will not give me a new line, and technically, if I take out this portion, and then here from here I will take out this portion, right? So it's equivalent to the previous statement. You can see that I got the same result. In the previous one, I have everything in one line, which is the best way to do this. Say here it will be takes more code and it's more difficult to read. So I just wanted to add this as well.